always what's happening in your own neighborhoods. Regarding, I think that that's a topic that we're not talking enough of. If we keep on calling the police, they can only do so much. What about cameras in the area? Are there cameras in the area? What, no answer that yet, please. Because I want to relate to the drug activity, the gang members. Are you aware that there are suspected gang members in the area?
Sure.
And I'm wondering, that's a question for you after I finish, if you don't mind. Also, this has been happening since McDonald's, because I feel confident that I can talk about this in this group right here. There are gangs in this immediate area, and there are gangs on the south side that they've been born over there, coming from other areas, because the pressure from New York and New Jersey, I believe, is bringing more people into this area, whereas Cool, Calm, and Collected, versus the Poconos, where you don't have the inner city buildings and all that. The next resident is like a quarter of a mile or a mile away, you know, so they can do whatever they want, you know. But what do we do about gang members, drug activity, people that are using our lighted boxes, the traffic light posts, or graffiti? I've walked around this whole entire area looking at that on foot. I took the liberty of doing that. And all I see is these huge boxes with all sorts of names. It's not just one name. And then your bus stops, the same thing. The litter that's around the area is the same thing. Where do you all think about, in your minds, where this is coming from? It's drug activity, and they're hanging out, and it's going to get worse. I know personally about this because I've been there, and I know what they do. You know that. And any police officer that's on the force right now can state where I've been and what I've done and so on and so forth, but you really don't know what you're up against. I mean, with all due respect to all that you, the negative life. I don't know where you've been younger, but this is happening today. There's a new breed of people that's out there, and most of them are negative. And I would say, at least percentage-wise, 60 to 70% are basically all negative. The rest are like you, business, families, and school teachers, and so on and so forth. The police department, the fire department, you yourself, sir. But what do you do about what you are up against?
Well, I think
How do you approach this? What do you know about the community itself, and how to deal with these individuals that are really in our community, doing everything in the book that's all negative, and it's affecting all youth, because once your children are drawn into it, and we're all going to be gone, little by little, starting with our senior citizens that are much older, affecting this whole entire area, but then we have to deal with our children that are going to be the next generation. How does this affect them? I'm very concerned about that, because our younger children are out there. It's either drugs, gangs, and the gangs are drawing your kids. Believe me, they're drawing your kids into their gangs.
Wait, you say your kids. Who do you mean? Like, I've got 2 kids,
Yeah.
and one is.
Well, it's not. Don't take it personal.
No, I'm not. But I'm just saying.
What I mean.
The generalizing, and I understand that, you know, certainly there's a problem with drugs, but I mean, I think a lot of us have these connections to this north neighborhood, and then we're kind of here to figure out the things that bother us. And I think if we notice drug activity, we would be definitely addressing that. And I hear what you're saying.
You are.
And we do
There
address
are.
it.
There
Our
are
neighborhood
drugs
definitely
in this
addresses
area.
We have in
Yeah,
previous
yeah,
meetings,
that's right.
we've addressed
Let me
it.
just interrupt a second. One of my questions is, how many cops are on the patrol in our neighborhood? Jacksburg gave us a number one time during your shift. Like what's your range that you cover?
Just the neighborhood or whole
Not our
city?
neighborhood, but like,
The
do you
whole-
have certain sections?
So the way it works is
the patrol division is split up into 4 different platoons. So you have 3 platoons that rotate days and middles, and then 1 steady night shift platoon. The night shift platoon is split up into squads. So if you're on platoon 1, night shift has a squad 1 that coincides with them. Typically, days and middles platoons are staffed with 3 sergeants, 1 lieutenant, and between 15 and 18 officers. Night shift is staffed with...
Is that the whole city?
For the entire city.
And that's
But
certainly
that-
not including Moravian.
That's not including Moravian Police Department, that's not including the Lehigh University Police, that's not including specialized units, that's just patrol. So during the typical day shift time, during daytime hours, you would have 15 to 18 patrolmen out on the street. You would have 3 or 4 traffic officers on the street. You would have 4 to 5 investigators working. You'd have the school resource officers out. You may have the vice detectives out, as well as other agencies inside the city. The middle shift, you would have the same thing. You'd have about 18 officers working patrol. You would have, I believe they dropped down to 4 detectives, 3 or 4 detectives working the middle shift. And then, you know, I may come out on a middle shift. My schedule doesn't, I don't have a set schedule. I may work 8 to 4 one day, the next day come in 3 to 11, and then come in 11 at night till 7. I'm all over the place.
So with that, I mean, we have so many issues on this area with crime. I just feel like if we have a stronger police presence in the neighborhoods, obviously you don't walk the streets, but if we could just get the presence out there, it would be some kind of deterrent. Like, you can't be here. Yes, we're going to keep calling the cops. I don't need the drugs at the store. Don't need it even down the street, anywhere. I don't need home invasions. I mean, the kids, we have William Penn, they walk up the street, the daycare there. I just don't see the strong police presence until you get the drug bust next door. Not saying you're not there. I'm sure you are. I mean, but there's not that many cops out there.
So we can only, when you have 18 officers working the street, then the way the platoon is split up is then they get split up into sectors. So they'll take those 18 officers and split them between the west side, the south side, the east side, and the north side. So you may wind up technically only having 3 or 4 guys working in your area who are responsible for all calls for service in the area. So, you know, and then if something happens on the west side where 2 or 3 officers now tied up on that and another call for service comes in, they have to pull officers from a different sector to answer that call. So, I mean, in the perfect world, we would absolutely be out harassing everybody that's on the street that's up to the nefarious acts. Unfortunately, we can only do what we can with the manpower that's available at that time.
But even knowing that we are like, I mean, it's just ridiculous. I'm sure you went on the bus that were on the street, you know?
So the complaints that you guys call in, okay, they don't fall on deaf ears, okay? Especially when it comes to drugs in the area. Now, don't think that drugs are coming into this area and they're not anywhere else. Drugs are everywhere.
No.
Doing drug work for as long as I have, I've been in multi-million-dollar houses for drug busts, and I've been in, you know, a $300 a day rental. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in this country, the way that we are, the best adage I was ever told was, the drug busts that we do are the equivalent of emptying the oceans with a teaspoon. There's just so much of it out there. There's only so much that we can do. Also with that, when you call in drug complaints, we understand that it's a taxing situation for your neighborhood. Nobody wants a drug dealer living next door to them. Nobody wants drug users walking down their streets. But we also don't want to develop a case that we can't get that person out of your neighborhood. So you may think that you're calling in complaints about the same house and nothing's being done, but stuff is actually being done. There's cases that, I've been involved in cases that sometimes takes a year and a half to get done. That one on Main Street in the 900 block, I know that was a big one. Was it your neighbor?
Yeah.
Right next door.
That one, we had been trying, we had information that that person was selling narcotics. We can't just go up and knock on the door and be like, hey, we're told you're selling drugs, we want to search your house.
But then I also take that back to the city, because those houses were never inspected.
And
So, like, you have all these red alerts from, like Chief Delugio said, like, you guys can only do so much. Like, you wrap them up, arrest them,
Mhm.
or you catch them. But then when does the city step in, and this is a nuisance house, and take care of it?
so, I don't know if anybody saw the most recent release from the mayor. Starting in 2020, there is actually going to be, is
I
it?
think it's two more inspectors and another
Yeah, so,
person, yeah.
so that these houses that have absentee landlords are being held accountable.
Great.
But
So they're
does the
gonna have
city
to all
know
be,
about these houses? I
what's
mean,
the difference?
they may have never registered as a rental.
Yeah.
They,
and that's when the.
no, we've,
Oh.
as police officers, when we go around to houses for calls, we can tell which house is a rental, and over the years, they've been documented which houses are rentals. Every now and then, I could probably count on one hand the amount of time curveballs have been thrown at us where we think that it's a single-family house, and when we go into the house, all of a sudden, we're in 3 apartments, we're like, oh, this wasn't like this 3 months ago when we were here. But then it gets documented that, hey, this isn't up to par, this,
And then what do you do with that report? You turn it to the city.
that winds up going over to the city inspectors. Unfortunately, before, we only had, I think it was 1 or 2 inspectors, and he's putting on more inspectors to hold the rental properties accountable for making sure that inspections are being done, because,
It used to be just when you're gonna rent it, you'd get an inspection and that was it. Now it's gonna have to be every 3 years. And at the council meeting last night, a lot of the landlords are really mad because it's gonna be more money that they're gonna have to pay, but in our mind, you know, it needs to happen, it really needs to happen. So that
Those
hopefully will.
landlords are investors, they're
So
just
that
there
will
to
help.
make the buck,
Right.
so.
So hopefully that's gonna help, but it's in time, like I think the thing is, I mean, I live by a house that's a drug house. I lived through a hell of a summer because of a deadbeat landlord, so I'm living what you guys are living too, and I know it's frustrating, but I think that it's, like, I've talked to the Chief Delugio all the time and the mayor, and it's like, and what Officer Cox said is, it's true, like, they have to surveil the house, and they can't just go in and bust it, they need to make a case, or else it's all for naught.
if we
And
were to
we
just.
just have to keep on calling, and that's why, like Eddie, you're asking what we're doing, that's why we started Block Watch like 3 months ago. You know, that's why we're doing this, because this is the only way that we can make a difference.
But you know something,